Welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Hartley. This podcast exists to equip and inspire your heart-centered leadership. Every week, we bring interviews with some of the greatest heart sets and mindsets on the planet. I hope the heartprint of our time spent together is that it creates new possibilities for you and all those you come into contact with. If you'd like to explore what we could make possible for you, then head to abty.co.uk/connect and book in a free 30-minute call to begin our journey together. I just want to express a huge amount of gratitude to our sponsors, Exhale Coffee. I have been a big fan of Exhale Coffee since meeting Alex and the team back in 2022. Exhale is the first coffee to be sourced, roasted and lab tested specifically to maximize its antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potency. An independent lab test has shown that 1 cup of Exhale Coffee has the same antioxidant power as 1.8 kilos of blueberries or 55 oranges. I'm a huge fan, and Mrs. H loves the decaf, especially because she knows that Exhale use the mountain water decaffeination process, which uses only pure glacial water from the highest mountain in Mexico and no nasty chemicals. Simply head to exhalecoffee.com/ABTY for your special offer. And lastly, before I introduce this week's guest, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It would really help us leave a greater heartprint on this world. On episode 277, what an honour and a joy it is to sit down with Johann van Graan, the head coach of Bath Rugby. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know Johann, his heart and his mind behind the incredible things that he's doing with Bath Rugby. We talk about his leadership, we talk about his mindset, we talk about the culture that he's bringing to Bath. It is truly world class what he's doing at Bath. And I absolutely loved hearing about Johann's values, family first, and how he is a man of God and how he brings that to his work every single day. We of course talk about narrowly missing out on winning the Premiership last season, and we talk about his hopes for the coming season. It's episode 277 with Johann van Graan. Johann, welcome to the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast. How are you, brother?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So good to see you. I was born in Bath. How is the city of my birth treating you?
No, very well. We're very settled here now in our third year. We arrived here on the 24th of June in 2022. So it's treating us very well. My wife and I are well settled. The kids are enjoying their school, and we've certainly become part of the community.
Love that. Well, thank you for bringing joy back to the blue, black and white. It's been great to watch from the stands. We were there, my brother and my family, we were there in Twickenham. It was so close, but great to be back in that special place again, once again, with the blue, black and white.
Yeah, it was a special season last season, and a lot of hard work by a lot of people. From an owner who keeps backing the club, a board that wants the team to grow and be successful, heads of department and staff that care and want to improve the players, and then most importantly the players, a playing group that wants to get better day in and day out. And it's about memories and it's about a journey, and we've been on a journey, and it ended on the 8th of June last season at the final at Twickenham. And what a day it was. Potentially one moment short of winning it. And one of my personal sayings is 1 point is the biggest and smallest margin in sport. And you can say one moment, one game, one day, but it's small margins. But I'm very content, very proud of the team and what we achieved. And the playing group, the staff gave it all they got, and then you've got to be respectful to your opponents and say well done.
Yeah, and one of the huge things I admired about that day was just, and I think you were doing this all season long, was the grace and the humility with which you handled like the post-match interviews. But something also happened on that day where your leaders on the pitch had such grace and humility in defeat. Their interviews, you look at any of the players' interviews, there's clearly this ripple effect, this culture that you've brought in, because like yeah, it's palpable. I really pay attention to the words and language used in interviews to really get behind the mindset and the character of teams, and yeah, just such grace and humility. And I guess the biggest thing I took from that was just a bigger perspective, like like that when there was some of the wives are like, oh, oh, it's just a game, but there's actually some truth to that, which is that life is about more than just rugby.
Yeah, two things spring to mind. When I joined here, I used a quote by Pep Guardiola, a
Mhm.
coach that I followed quite a lot. And he's got this quote saying, "This beast called football, in our instance, rugby. So this beast called rugby will eat you alive if you're not always, 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 always yourself." And I'm
Mm,
coaching men that I want to not only become better rugby players, but also better men. And then the
mm,
second bit is there's so many rules in today's world. I've only got one rule: just treat others the way you want to be treated. And I think
mm,
it's a very simple principle, but I like simplicity. And everybody's different, but just treat others the way that you want to be treated. And I think that's two things that we've done very well across our time together: is be yourself, and then treat
mm.
others the way you want to be treated.
Love that. I want to dive into some more of that. But before we go too far in the conversation, I want to know about your journey into this beast called rugby. Was it you're South African? Was that always the path of destiny to love the egg shaped ball, or were there other things growing up? What was your real passion, and how did you get into the beast called rugby?
Yeah, my dad was the CEO of the then Northern Transvaal of the now the Bulls for a very long time. So ever since I can remember, I grew up at Loftus Versfeld, the home of the Bulls. Started as a ball boy there at a very young age, and
Mm-hmm.
kicked countless balls back for the likes of Naas Botha, Theo van Rensburg,
Yeah.
Lance Sherrill, Peter Nel. So those were my heroes when I grew up. And
Mm,
then obviously played rugby at primary school and at high school, and very proud of the schools that I attended. And then I went to play in the United States for a year,
mm,
which I enjoyed a lot, and grew up a lot. And um, I returned back, played for the Bulls juniors, and played for University of Pretoria.
mhm.
And then it was a semi-final against Western Province at Newlands in Cape Town that I decided, I'm gonna stop playing the game and start coaching. And I started coaching our school at that stage, just under 14 C's and D's, and
Yeah.
started with some, let's call it, technical analysis at the Bulls and at the university and at Afista School, something that that nobody did at that stage. And
Mm,
I actually started with a blank page and a pencil. And then I went to the Pumas. At that stage, they were in a place called Witbank, about an hour away from Pretoria, and then started at the Bulls on the 1st of November 2003. And a coach that I learned a lot from, Heyneke Meyer, said to me, the first thing I can remember he said to me on the 1st of November was, make yourself unmissable.
yeah.
And I really tried to get better in what I did. And I was part of a magnificent team for 9 years at the Bulls. We as a group went through some incredible things, highs, lows,
Mm,
some things that I never thought was possible. And then in 2012, went to be assistant coach of South Africa, the Springboks. And yeah, that was certainly my biggest moment. First test against England in Durban, and
mm,
was very fortunate to be part of 74 test matches for the Springboks. And then on the 19th of November 2017, joined Munster in Ireland. And um, my family and I, we relocated to Limerick and spent
mm,
almost 5 years in Ireland. And then now we're in the UK, we're in Bath. So yeah, I've been so privileged that rugby takes you all across the world and gives you these
Mm.
memories. And I once heard a saying, what's the difference between fear and gratitude? It says fear is to worry about the things that might happen, and gratitude is to be thankful for the things that have happened. So
Mm.
yeah, I'm so grateful for rugby and the opportunities that it's given me in life.
Thank you for that. I saw you speak on stage at a leadership event a couple of months ago, and I was just captivated by your the way that you spoke about this game called rugby, but also the culture and the environment that you're trying to build, the mindset that you're trying to create, and one of the words that keeps coming through is like world class, and you defined world class in a number of different statements, but something that symbolizes the world class stages, like the intensity of pressure. And I imagine walking into a club like Bath, or even any of the prestigious clubs that you've walked into, there's eyes, there's attention, there's focus. And you talked about must always be yourself. Like how have you as a leader, before we talk about the culture you create, how have you as a leader really carved out this true sense of identity?
I was about 20 or 21, and a gentleman called Jan Stein, who has played a big part in my life. In South Africa, we had a Bible study at his house on some weekdays. It might have been Wednesdays, whatever days it was. And he asked us as a group, each of us across the next few weeks have got to speak about who are we.
Mm.
And that kind of asked the question to myself, well, who am I and what am I about? And I took a number of years actually to try and figure that out. And I don't think
Hmm.
it's an answer. Once you figure it out, it kind of stops. I think it's ever evolving. But I've certainly in my own mind, and it's written down who I believe I am and what I stand for. That saying, if you don't stand for anything, you will fall for anything. So I know who I am, and I know what's important to me in life, and I've kind of put it in three different levels: on a personal level, on a relationship level, and then on a working level.
Mm.
Which in this instance, my work is my passion in life. So yeah, I took some time to figure myself out, because how can you lead others if you don't know who you are? And
Mm.
yeah, that's certainly something that I've become very aware of. Is I've got to be comfortable with who I am and where I'm
Mm.
from, and that's why I accept all people from all walks of life, because we're all so different. Um, the challenge is then, as a leader, as a coach, is to align those people into getting to a specific point at a
Mm.
specific time. And that's why I speak about this journey each year, because nobody knows the future. You can't change the past, you can only live for today. And I speak about this train journey. In 2011, I visited Japan for the first time.
Mhm.
Japanese are fascinating people, and I learned so much from them. And I've used the Shinkansen, the speed train, the bullet train in Japan as an example. It's like the train travels so fast, and it's got a starting point. If you go from Osaka to Tokyo, it's got a starting point and it's got an end point, but nobody knows who's on the train, what happens on the train,
Mm.
what conversations take place. Some people sleep. So it's more about this journey each year represents a starting date. In this instance, we're starting next weekend on the 20th of September, and then it ends on the 14th of June, whether we make a final or we don't. And nobody knows what will happen, but it's about then understanding that this will be a journey. There'll be ups and downs. There'll be times that we are fast. There'll be times that we are slow. People will leave. People will join. But embracing that journey
Mm.
and understanding that it will end. Because sometimes in pro sport, I think we get so caught up in the moment, but then when you win, the world tells you everything is great, and when you lose, the world tell you that everything is wrong, but that's not the reality of sport, and that's definitely not the reality of life. So, yeah, trying to enjoy the journey, really.
Yeah, I feel that because one of the wonderful things you shared at the event was this like triangle model, and I was paying close attention to it. And obviously, the goal at the very top of the group is to win, right? But below that, you had happiness, and it's this idea that most of the world has that inverted. We'll be happy when we win. And I think what you're saying is you're creating a culture and a spirit of people who are content, which probably sets the right conditions, to go and be a winning team, shall we say?
Yeah, a saying that immediately comes up when you say that is, you don't become a champion when you win a trophy. You're a champion every day of your life. So,
Yes,
a trophy just represents all of the hard work that you've put in.
yes.
But, I'll just use last year's example. It was the best year that Bath have had in 9 years. But we lost in the final. But that doesn't mean that the year was a failure,
Mhm.
quite the opposite. It was a magnificent year. And as a coach, you can't ask any more of anybody from what they did last season. So, yeah, in my book, that's a massive win. Were we disappointed that we lost the game? Absolutely. You
Mm,
play to win, but you're a champion every day of your life. And yeah, you want to be also surrounded with people that want the same as you.
mm.
And that fosters a environment of continuous improvement, people that want to become better. And that's certainly something that I believe we've created here at the club.
One of the things I heard you say is at the moment of the red card in the final, you were like, it was my job to be the calmest person in that stadium. Like, there's one thing to say those words. There's another to actually be able to summon that calmness. And I guess that's years and years of intentional practice. But take us to that moment. How did you, whilst chaos is going around you, well, people like me and my family in the crowd were just, no, how can that be? How did you compose yourself to be the calmest in that stadium?
A very good friend of mine, which was also the best player that I've ever coached, a player called Fourie Pre. When we were a lot younger, when I went to my first World Cup, he said one piece of advice. The World Cup is a wild journey. Make sure that you are composed, and that made a big impression on me. The World Cup in 2015 in England, that's
Mm,
something that I became very aware of is composure, specifically under pressure. And
mm,
um, going back to that moment, is you have to be composed, because if you're not composed, how can you expect the rest of your team to be composed? And you've got 30 seconds to make a big call, and that's why you need good people around you. So
mm,
I touched base with Lee Blackett, who was on my left. Richard Blaze, who was just in front of me, spoke over the microphone to JP Ferreira, who was on the pitch, and then literally took, I don't know, thinking back now, maybe 10, 15 seconds, just thinking it through. And then the decision was, do I take off a forward or do I take off a back? And I had to think of the game. I had to think of our plan. I had to think of the opposition. And then I had to think of the time left. And there was a significant amount of time left. And our bench, also how I selected our bench for the final. So a whole host of things happened. But again, all credit to the players, because whatever decision I made, they just backed it and
mm.
they adapted on the field. And halftime was great to see. Everybody calm, everybody composed. We
Yeah.
we readapted our plan, and we led that final with 8 minutes to go with 14 men. And unfortunately, when you get to a final, you play against very good opposition. And Hampton is also a class team, and they scored a brilliant try, and then became a one-score game, and we had the ball in the last play of the game, and we lost it 5 meters from the try line. So that's the margins of sport.
Mm.
But you know, I'm proud of the composure of the whole group in that specific moment.
Yeah, very impressive. And it's like you say, that ability to be composed and that trust that you have as a team, that wasn't just a in the moment thing. That's like standing on top of everything you've built throughout the entire preseason, the entire season, so that you can dig into the depths of something that's already there. You know, you can't pull something out of the bag if it's not there, right? So pouring that in. How do you create, you know, Farley House is touted as, you know, this wonderful training center, but like whether you can, maybe there's some, you know, spies listening to this podcast to get some tips from the best, but what do you create at Farley for, you know, not just because, you know, there's the technical skills where you've got great rugby players, but so much of our conversation and so much of your approach is about forming a team, forming an individual, refining of character. Those things are beyond the game of passing a rugby ball and scoring tries. Like, how do you create that as an environment and as a culture to bring these young men who are incredible at what they do and, like you say, make them better men?
I think by following a process,
Hmm.
and um, I believe you've got to follow a process that you believe in. And going back to what I said at the start, you've got to be yourself. So that's why I'm so open to sharing, and maybe it can make a difference to one other person,
Hmm.
because what I've learned in professional sport, it doesn't help that you follow somebody else's plan, because that's somebody else's plan. So you've got to believe absolutely in what you do. So,
Yeah.
you know, it took me years to come up with that performance model, and
Hmm.
a whole host of people's theirs would be different. But I believe you've got to have the right leader, and you've got to have support staff that I can trust, and they must care. And then got to have special players. And what does a special player look like? It's somebody that loves the game, that works hard, and that are mentally tough. And then you've got to make them fit, because we play collision sports, and it's not for the faint-hearted. We don't play a safe game. We want to make it as safe as possible, but it's not a safe game. It's one of the last gladiator sports remaining, and that's the beauty of rugby. And then you've got to have a simple plan, and the reason for a simple plan is pressure. You've got to be able to execute under pressure.
Mm.
And that to your question, how I get to Farley House, you've got to do that in a focused training environment, and that's something that I found here. Farley is definitely focused, because it's only us here.
Mhm.
When you drive in and you drive through the gates, you see the fields on your right hand side, and you see the castle. And um, I'll use Farley House as an example of a human being. It's incredibly pretty, but you know, it's not about how you look on the outside, because we don't choose how we look, or how we were
Mm.
born, or how we were made. The inside is important. So I think one of the biggest things that I've added to this environment is changing the inside, because that's got to be good, and that's got to be well. And we created a natural flow to how we do things, not only from a program point of view, but the actual physical buildings, how they look on the inside. And also, you've got to taste winning. You've got to when you walk into a place, you've got to see it,
Mm.
you've got to feel it. So we made significant change on the inside of the
Mm.
building. And
Mm.
I didn't speak about the outside, because it is such a beautiful place, and it was always Bruce Craig, our owner's vision, to be very unique, and
Mm.
that we certainly have. But it's about what the inside looks like. So
Mm.
yeah, we made significant change to the inside, and make sure it's an environment where there's flow to it. And there's potentially a lot of other different environments that are specifically built for a rugby or a football
Mm.
or an
Mm.
Olympic environment. But this is different. So I embraced the fact that it's different, but spent significant time on the inside, not so much on the outside.
Yeah, it's powerful. One of the things I really like pick up on is the qualities of the heart and the qualities of the mind, and I listen very intently. You know, things like passion and character and feel. You're talking about, you know, a heart. And then the mind is very much the analytical, the process, the performance. And what it feels like from the outside for me is that you've been able to integrate both the heart and the mind. And I think when people do that, that's really powerful, because quite often the world says you can have this or that. You can either be happy or you can win. And I think you're not playing the game of this or that. I think you're playing the game of and, which is, if I do this and this, then it will create wonderful things that other people maybe not made to make possible because they're still living in the world of this or that.
Yeah, well, two things spring to mind is, we work in a results-based business, so we want to win every single game that we play in, but history tells you that that's impossible. There's no team in the history of the game that have won every single game. So then I go back to um, the art and the science of coaching, living, playing is, I think we live in a world where everything is on our phones. So everything is measured. How many likes do you get? How many views? Um, you know, so we are so driven by data, our GPS, we've run this fast, or we've made this amount of tackles, but then I think sometimes you lose the art of living. We're all human beings. We weren't designed to be on cell phones. We weren't designed to be driven by computers. So both are very important. It's about trying to find the common middle ground, if that's the right English. So a saying is, never too high when you win. You're never as good as they say you are, and never too low when you lose. You're never as bad as they say you are. So consistency, trying to improve, look at a result, look at a week, look at a day, look at a moment for what it is. And then again, just stay in the moment. You can't change what happened last week, and I don't know what happens in the future. So stay in the present. You can plan as for the future. That's something that I believe is a strength of mine, is do proper planning. But then you've got to be able to adapt and be fluid in high performance sport.
Are there particular techniques that you help the young men with? Because you and I have the benefit of lived experience. We're a bit older than your players, but they're young men. They're coming into elite performance, but with a small lead time of knowing who they truly are and how they can be themselves. Is there anything you do as techniques to help them discover who they are and how to be in the moment?
I'd say the number one thing is you've got to appoint the right people to work with them, to support them. So your head of medical, your head of physical performance, your operations manager, your nutritionist, your academy manager, your coaching group, your head of performance. That's all got to be the right people. You've got to have the right psychological support, because we are all so different, and certain people attract certain people. For instance, some players might be very close to the head of medical, and some people might be very close to their physical performance. One of my biggest things is to get the right blend of people that can speak to all different people, and all people in the environment. And then going back to what I said earlier, is keep aligning people, keep driving the same message, and keep being consistent. It's no good that, I said we've got to be never too high, never too low. But when we lose, I'm very down, and when we win, I'm very high. So that comes from the leader, but that also comes from the right people. And yeah, I found some incredible people, yeah, at Bath, and we've added some incredible people. So yeah, look, technique wise, appoint the right people and put them in the right environment, and then constantly evaluate what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then what is my job? My job is process. The process has got to lead to performance. If it doesn't, then I've got to make changes. So process driven, that leads to performance. Because ultimately, again, we're a we're a rugby team that plays in the Premiership and plays in the Champions Cup, and our core business is rugby. We're all bound together by one thing, and that's rugby.
Mm. Yeah, I love it. I spent a significant period of my career in the police, and one of the, I mean, it's evolved and it's adapted over the last 5 years, but in the early days, it was very much leave family at home. Like work's work, leave family at home. It's almost like cut off your feelings, cut off your life. Don't come to work stressed if your kids are playing, whatever it is, right? Work is work. Leave that at home. And I just don't think that's ever sustainable. Don't think that's ever possible. And to hear you on a stage saying the two most important things to you in your life were your family and your faith, just like set my heart on fire. I was like, here we go. I'm listening. Talk to me about how we can be in a world-class environment and not have to cut off those sides of ourselves. How do you do that? How do you integrate those values into your everyday work?
So, if I first speak about my faith is, I know who I am and I know where I'm going in life, and I'm very comfortable with that.
Mm,
Um, and then I'm also very comfortable that whatever anybody else chooses that I work with that is their choice, and I respect their choice. The second bit is family first always.
mm,
I could not do this without my family, and I believe life is about people. Life is not about rugby. Life is not about your example about the police. Life is about sharing experiences, and my
mm.
wife and our kids, my family is all part of our journey. Because I'll give you a very simplistic example. We moved countries twice now in the last 5 years. So how can they not be part of this journey? And then
Yeah.
players and staff is the same. Is um, their families need to be part of it. And a thing I've learned in life is that we've all got problems, sometimes bigger than other times. But it's impossible, in my view, to think that you can drive into the gates of Farley or walk into whatever your workplace is and just cut the rest of your life off.
Mm,
So I believe you've got to live the balanced life. You've got to know what your priorities are, and you've got to know where you spend your time. Because ultimately we've got one life,
mm,
and none of us knows where that ends. It's fascinating sometimes. If I could go back to my younger self, is I think when we are young, which I still see myself as very young, is we kind of live this indestructible life that it may never end, but it might end today, it might
yeah.
end tomorrow. So going back to faith and family, I think that's the two most important things in my life. And whatever the people choose that I work with, whatever the most important things in their lives are, I'd like to create an environment of balance where you know at work our rugby is very important, but I'll give an example. If you've got a sick boy at school
Mhm.
and he needs to be picked up, you must go and do that, because that's more important than the gym session that we might have now or the preview that we might have now. So, yeah, faith and family is very important to me.
That's very powerful because I think, one of the things I've learned is that leadership has the power to send people home, you know, better or worse for those who, where you said they're unmissable, right? We are most unmissable in our families, right? There's only one dad, there's only one mum. And it's just amazing, isn't it, when you realize that the culture and the environment you can create not only maximizes their contribution in the moment to this thing called a Bath rugby team, but also they go out and impact their own families, their own communities, their own friendship circles.
Yeah, I think you know you've got to understand, or you've got not understand. I think you've got to figure out why are you living, and
Mm,
that'll be different for all of us. And that's not for me to say how others should be or others should live their life. What I've figured out for me is, surely I'm on this earth to make a difference. So I can't change the world, but I can certainly help to improve the lives of the people that I work with. And what is that? That is just being consistent, be yourself, and
mm, mm,
be who you say you are.
mm,
And hopefully that will make a difference to one person, maybe two, maybe three. Um, but we spend a significant amount of time in professional sport together. So if that's the case, you might as well create an environment where everybody's aligned and where everybody can be themselves. And to use your words, when they go home, hopefully they go home with a good experience. Hopefully, they say, I want to be part of this. And I think a very important thing in sport, in life, is we all want to belong. We all want to belong to something, and we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. There's very little people that I've come across that only want to be by themselves the whole time and don't want to speak to others, or don't want to support a proper football team or a rugby team, or are not fascinated by following some kind of group or organization that make a difference. So yeah, I think that sense of belonging, and yeah, I'm certainly very proud of what we've created as a group together, because it's never been about me. It will never be about me. It's about the club and what we can create a unique culture with purpose. I said to the group a few weeks ago, what is purpose? It's go to, what do you really, 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 really want in life? Who do you want to make a difference to? How do you want to lead your life? And see where those three things overlap. Yeah, I think that'll be pretty close to what your purpose are.
I just had a vision of you on the training ground saying, "You say you're the Messi of rugby? Be who you say you are."
Yeah, look, I think you are so privileged to be a coach of players, and ultimately, like I said before, you want to make players live their dreams, and they want to perform on the pitch. And the very best that I've coached are very unique. They've got certain attributes. They are most of the time very tough individuals, and what I mean by tough is it doesn't just happen. It's not just the winning kick or the winning try or the winning tackle. There's been some massive disappointment, but the understanding that I've got to work through this, and I've got to come again, I've got to come again. And you know, a guy that showed that to me a few years ago was Michael Jordan, when they made that program of his. And you kind of always read about, he had the most winning shots, but when he spoke about, oh well, how many times did I lose the game? Then you get respect for the fact that he came back again and he came back again. And ultimately that's the beauty of top athletes, top sports people, very successful people. The world only tells us about the times that we win. The world don't speak about the times that we lose. And like I said, all of us are on a journey of ups and downs. There's nobody that's perfect, and there's nobody that always wins.
Yeah, you and I share a faith, and one of the things that for me, I've been through some real life challenges over the last 18 months, and the thing that's going to come up in my journaling quite a lot is, okay, you can be grateful to God when life's good, life's sweet, right? But can you be grateful when you're in the lion's den? Like, that's the thing for me, is like, can I get my mind to see the things where I am blessed and I'm grateful for all of it, even when like my flesh would say this hurts, this is painful. I wish. Can I really have the wisdom to go, thank you for all of it? And I think that's just a next level of being grateful, like you say, as it for all of it, not just the best bits.
Yeah, you use the word there, wisdom. That's something that I pray and hope for a lot, because
Yeah.
every day is unique. And there's certain days when you don't have all the answers. But then you've got to be comfortable in your own skin that you've got good people around you, you've got a solid process, you've got a good family life, and sometimes you just got to wait for the answer. And sometimes the answers come. But then I go back to people and experiences, or maybe your gut. What a lot of people say, I'm going to trust my gut. What is your gut? Well, gut is the things that you've been through, and then that feeling of yours of, okay, this is the way that I should go. So, yeah, is life always perfect? No. Um, uh, do I at stages don't have all the answers? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, But then that thing again about relationships, having the right people around you that want the same as you, because I think that's very important. When I spoke about everybody being themselves, you want the right people,
Mm,
and you
mm,
want people that want the same as you. And then another word that jumps to mind across your question is that word expectation.
mm,
You know, you've got to know what you expect of yourself, and I can't expect of others that I won't do myself. And I think that's very important. Is in a world where again we get told so many things and told so many lies, a lot of that's just perception. Is just expect from others what you expect from yourself, and
yeah.
that's been a good guide to me.
There's some simplicity and practicality to that. So I was reading the book of Peter yesterday, and in this message has been coming to me quite a lot, which is that the more you dwell in the spirit, you get access to God's solutions as opposed to human solutions. Like human solutions are like limited, they're finite, and they're not always the most successful. Like we said earlier, you can have this or that. Whereas in a God solution and a spirit connection solution, you gain access to all eventualities, all possibilities, all and I really am trying to take that to heart, that the more I dwell, the more I gain access to wisdom that is not of me. Ryan Hartley's lived imagination and his wisdom is far inferior to that of that which is in all and through all. And I guess, you talk about processes, and do you have uh, other people might call this a routine? Do you have a particular process or a routine to keep you dwelling, to keep you abiding?
Yeah, early mornings.
Mm,
Uh, Try and get up consistently early in the morning. Spend my quiet time, plan for the day, reflect on yesterday, and then
mm,
running. Running is that for me. In the morning, when in the winter it's dark, in the summer it's light, but spend that time
mm.
um, thinking, running, walking, praying, talking to yourself, and then making a decision. And most of the times I found throughout my life, that's been the best day. The best time of
Mm,
day is early morning. And I said it at the leadership conference that you were at. A lot of people, the saying that early bird catches the worm. I want to be the worm. You want to be the guy that's first there.
yeah.
And it's not about trying to impress others.
Mm,
Everybody must work that out for themselves, or being earlier than others, because I always believe you've got to be efficient in life as well.
mm, mm.
Um, but yeah, early mornings is, if you ask me what's the difference to me, it's early mornings.
Yeah. I stopped short of giving anyone advice around what to do. I think people have to figure it out themselves. But like in my experience, an early morning gives me far more than a late evening. So you and I, when and anybody in a leadership position, you're constantly in demand, right? People want your opinion, your advice, your family, your friend. And I sometimes think if I preserve my time in the evening, it was almost more protective. I need to get my energy, but that's when the snacks come out. That's when the nachos are coming out. It's when I'm up too late, and it affects. So my personal experience is that early bird hunt, well, the worm, it get up early, and it just infuses my day, so much more. One of the things that, particularly the faith thing, is like I wouldn't want people to think, oh, you're going to pray to your God so that you get a win, you get a victory. Like, pray to God, make me win. And I think one of the best examples I heard of that was when Tyson Fury was talking about his fight with Alexander Usyk, and they both have faith. And the reporter was almost like putting him into, well, God can only choose one of you to win. And Tyson was like, I'm not playing that game because God will use us both to His glory, and may He keep us both safe. And I think that's a different context and perception to having a faith whilst at high competition. It's so that it changes us. It's not so that we are able to go, hey God, give us a victory, but to your victory, may we perform at our best, be the best versions of ourselves, make a difference to the lives of other people. And how are you overt with it at Farley House with your faith? Do you invite people in, or do you have other ways of bringing that spirit to your the way that you lead?
So firstly, I believe we as human beings have got choices.
Hmm.
And in professional sport, you've got to train hard every day. You've got to sleep well, you've got to eat well, you've got to recover well. You've got to make sure that you are technically and tactically good. So if you don't get those things right, you're not just magically gonna win.
Yeah.
So that's why I believe in process. And then a question about faith, and I'm very comfortable to speak about it. Uh, but I believe life is about action. So treat people well.
Hmm.
I once heard a saying that says, "Give somebody enough love until they ask you why." So it's not my job to make decisions for others as to whether they believe or what they believe in, because everybody's got a different view of what that looks like. Everybody sees God a little bit differently. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's not something that I speak about every single day. What
Mm.
I try and do is lead a consistent life, and as I say to many people, I make many mistakes each day. It doesn't mean that if you are a person of faith that you lead this perfect life, but
Mm.
if you try to. So going back to the two bits that we started this conversation about is just be yourself.
Mm.
Um, and then the second bit is treat others the way you want to be treated. And I think it's two very simplistic principles, but I'd like to think it's something that we all at the club have done really, really well across the last two and a bit years is living those two principles.
Love that. I'm super conscious of your time. I know you've got a busy day ahead. I'd just love to know what your reflections on the season ahead. What you hoping for the season 24 to 25.
Um, this is now since 2003, so what's it, 21 years, 22 years, that I've been part of a team that starts a new season, a new journey, and everyone's been different. Um, I will go to how I try and lead my life. Enjoy every day of your life. It's later than you think. And then the most important bit is the best is yet to come. So I believe that the best is yet to come. I believe you've got to have dreams and you've got to dream big dreams. So obviously we want to be winning a trophy, but who knows? It might be this year, it might be in 5 years' time, it might not happen. But that belief of the best is yet to come, and try and improve, and then try and enjoy it, which I think sometimes we don't do enough, is enjoy life. Because I keep getting myself in conversations where people say, "Where's the time gone?" Oh, it feels like yesterday, but then that was 20 years ago. And I'm 44 years old now, but I still feel 22, 23. But I'm 44, and in 20 years' time, I'm going to be 64 if I get to live that long. So yeah, certainly those two bits is enjoy every day for the season ahead, because a season's got four different times. You've got summer, you've got winter, you've got autumn, and you've got spring. And each team, in our case, goes through those, call it emotions, call it
Mm.
times of the year. Um, and then you've just got to embrace it. And who knows what might happen across the next 9 months. But yeah, enjoy every day of your life and believe that this year will be better than last year.
Come on. I love that. Oh, I love that. I could talk to you all day long, my friend, but that would not be a good use of your time. I have a word here at Always Better Than Yesterday. It's called Heartprint. And the word really symbolizes the ripple effect that we have in the lives of other people, the difference that we make, the investments that we make. And Johann, I just wonder what you hope, come to the end of your coaching days, come to the end of your fatherhood, not the end of your father, the end of your time. What do you hope that your heartprint will be?
Yo, that's a big question. Um, I'd like to think or like to hope that people will say that he made a difference. His actions spoke louder than words, and that he treated others well, that he was a good husband, good father, and good friend. Yeah, I'd say that's the most important.
Love it. Johann, thank you so much for your time, brother. I'd appreciate if you leave us a final thought from your good self.
The best is yet to come.
Come on, let's go. Good luck for the season.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hey, my friends, thank you for making it to the end. I hope that our time spent together today has left you a little bit better than before you push play. I'd really appreciate if you just took a moment to leave a review to allow me to meet more people where they are and hopefully leave them a little bit better too. If you're curious to know how I, through Always Better Than Yesterday, can serve you, your team, your organisation, then head to alwaysbetterthanyesterday.com to connect. And while you're there, let me know 1 or 2 things that you're going to do as a result of listening to this conversation. I absolutely love hearing your thoughts, your reflections, and the things that this spark in your own heart and mind. If you want more insights from my heart and mind, I do send out short episodes on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, and again, I hope that they serve you well. I appreciate you listening. I'm Ryan Hartley, host of the Always Better Than Yesterday podcast, a podcast for heart-centered leaders just like you. Keep leading, my friends. Always love.